What's it like being an ENTP? Interesting, if I do say so myself. Um, you know, to just give an overview of what an ENTP is, it stands for an extroverted, intuitive thinking perceiver. Now, for all of those who are not familiar with MBTI, it's essentially a framework of 16 different personalities that supposedly represent the population. And an ENTP is one of the rarer types, supposedly. Um, Now, what's it like being an ENTP? I actually made a video back in the day, about 4 years ago, talking about this topic. And a lot of those ideas, they still ring true. You know, we're adaptable, we're flexible, we love debates, we love ideas. I think that we love to generate lots and different ideas. Whether we see them through to fruition or not is another question. But definitely adaptability and idea generation is a a trait of an ENTP, and that just stems from extroverted intuition. NE being the hero function, so to speak, the driving factor of how we view the world. We're constantly scanning, searching for patterns, trying to make sense of the possibilities within nature and within our immediate surroundings. And it's a much more larger scope rather than, or shall I say, the breadth that we of perception that NE has in comparison to NI, which is much more focused and long-term thinking. NE is just more obsessed with like the different possibilities, and then with the combination of TI as a logical framework to try and see what are the possible outcomes or the likely outcomes of pursuing whatever idea, which makes us great at starting projects or great at having a vision and steering a ship towards a certain idea. But perhaps where NI is more focused on the long-term outcomes, NE can often get distracted by the next idea. So idea generation and which coincides and lends itself nicely to adaptability, because if you're seeing all these different patterns and you're able to adapt in the moment, well, they go hand in hand. So definitely those two. And I suppose another trait of an ENTP is just an optimistic attitude. Now this may be similar with ESTPs. ESTPs tend to be very self-confident, enterprising, outgoing, and they tend to have an optimistic outlook. And that optimism is also coincided with the... Yeah. As I was saying before I got interrupted there by the food delivery guy, ENTPs like ESTPs are optimists, but combined with the realist outlook. So how does that look in practice? Well, it is what it is, but smile through it, so to speak, right? Like, reality is the way it is, but you don't need to get beaten up by that harsh truth. So, we don't take life so seriously. Well, this is the perhaps not paradox, the contradictory nature. ENTPs are serious and jokers at the same time. So it's kind of a dichotomy, or it's kind of a contrast there, because responsibility is something that can be derived from having a mature and wise perspective, but you want to have a laugh along the way and rebel and be irresponsible and take risks, sometimes stupid risks, and then learn from those aspects. So that optimistic attitude generally helps to deal with reality. And as I mentioned there, that risk-taking attitude that ENTPs have. ENTPs are definitely risk takers, and that goes hand in hand with our adaptable nature, being able to adapt to different environments and to put ourselves in discomfort. I'm an advocate for challenging myself by throwing myself in the deep end to see how I will adapt and trusting my capacity to do so. And I think ESTPs are definitely excellent at this as well, especially with that SE function combined with TI auxiliary. You'll often see ESTPs perhaps taking more physical risks, whereas ENTP is taking more intellectual risks or different perspectives that challenge the status quo. This is the mark of an ENTP for sure, playing devil's advocate and playing with ideas. So those three there, or four, which were adaptability, idea generation, risk-taking, and an optimistic attitude, these are all traits that I think a lot of ENTPs can find some resemblance with. And there are, many more, I'm sure. Another quality of the ENTP type, and perhaps a negative, is the disorganized nature that they can sometimes exhibit. And this could also be a consequence of, a consequence of adaptability. If you're so adaptable, you're flexible to any kind of environment, it means you're not stuck to a particular structure or routine. And when it comes to organization, you tend to be more on the fly and more improvising rather than organized. And when it comes to paying bills or keeping up with the nitty-gritty details, an ENTP can fall short and slip up on the details of life. And this is probably a facet of introverted sensing being in the inferior function, which, over time, an ENTP develops that as a kind of a repository of information, but it takes a long time for them to develop that so that they can stick to a particular thing, or to organize their lives and not leave a mess wherever they go, because they're adaptable. So being disorganized is definitely something that ENTPs have to work on. And like a messy desk, for example, I don't think that the clutter actually impacts an ENTP at all, because they're not distracted by what's around them. They're thinking things through in their mind. So how the environment looks is less of a problem as it would be for perhaps a J type. I know INTJs and ISTJs are, pretty obsessed with having the details down, especially ISTJs, having an organized life, having structure. And, this is there's a negative to that in not being able to adapt to change or something new, a new variable that's thrown in the mix, whereas an ENTP can. And again, this whole idea of being adaptable or this whole idea of focusing on the bigger picture rather than the details is definitely a strength of an ENTP, because they're big picture thinkers. They're able to take a wide view on a particular idea. So if you're planning a project, the ENTP is looking at what the end goal will be, or what the possible future circumstances are, and not necessarily focusing on the nitty-gritty details that are needed to get there. They have a vision, and everything else will fall into place. So I think that I would leave it in there. So just to wrap up some of the traits of an ENTP, they are optimistic, they are risk takers, they're big picture thinkers, they're idea generators, and they're highly adaptable to circumstance. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and share your comments in the comment section below. Thanks. Take care. Welcome to the Sage Verse, with real works and true words. Patterns of recognition leave your brain converged. Time is irrelevant when the thoughts of impediment corrupt your soul with mind-numbing nemesis. The sage's way is where the truth hits the page. Turn your soul into a library in the name of knowledge and discovery. We seek out reality to be gone of human apathy.